You're listening to the Sufficiently Advanced Podcast.
All by ourselves. We're doing the podcast all by ourselves. Love it. Woot. All right. So we're back this week. We are all by ourselves because no one wanted to join us for this because we're kind of lame.
Wah, wah.
Dun, 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 dun.
So what are we talking about? I'm Hanson.
I'm Halsey. So this week we are going to be talking about cryptozoology.
That sounds very fancy.
It is very fancy.
Sweet.
It's a fancy way of saying I believe in Bigfoot.
Oh,
and I wanted
okay.
to talk about Bigfoot and things like that.
I mean, there's nothing better than making yourself sound slightly not like a crackpot by having an official name.
Yeah, I mean, just because I have a cabin in the woods that has tons of munitions and rations, just in case Bigfoot does come, doesn't mean I'm crazy.
We're
doesn't.
just preppers, not crazy end of the world psychos.
Preparation, children. Preparation. But yeah, we're going to be talking about different, what they're called cryptids. And these are animals thought to exist, but there's no evidence showing that they exist. But
Or very shaky evidence.
It's shaky
that's
evidence.
Generally debunked.
yeah. And so we're going to talk about a couple of ones first that are a little bit more in the realm of, I don't know, how should we put it?
I mean, our categories are a little vague, but essentially kind of some joke-ish ones, some ones that are more towards the fantasy end, a couple that are just kind of weird in general, and then we've got a couple that are more popular and might even have some explanations for them.
Okay. So which one do you want to start with?
Oh, the noble Texas jackalope.
Ooh. Now those are real.
Absolutely, they are. Of course.
The jackalopes are totally real.
Can't be denied.
I've seen them in different places in Texas.
Yeah, you know, stuff.
I mean, not alive.
You see them in like restaurants and things like that. So
Yeah.
obviously, if you see them, they have to be real.
Yeah. I mean, I believe they're real. I mean, aren't they?
Of course. So if you're not familiar with a jackalope, then you shouldn't be living in Texas. But these are the awesome and noble creatures that look a little bit like a jackrabbit, except that they have epic antelope horns on them.
It's amazing.
Beautiful. Majestic. The most
Magical.
perfect animal in all of Texas.
So, like, I have seen these on walls. Are they real? Or are they not?
As a Texan, I'm going to say yes. As a scientist, I'm going to say probably not.
Now, I have heard that it's not, they exist, but it's not actually bone. That's like a growth deformity.
Okay. I
That's
can
like,
see that making sense.
Yeah, like they've explained it in a way, from what I hear, it's not like the ones you see at like mounted on walls. Yeah, those aren't real. Those are not real. But there are some animals like rabbits that can get, I think it's a skin disease or growth deformity, where they do end up having some small horn. But not like what we see.
So I think that's actually a good start for kind of the theme of the connection between this and actual science. The idea is that these things are easy to be mistaken, and you know, the nature of the way humans are, we like to take these things and exaggerate them. And, you know, as things pass down that telephone line, the person at the end of that line often doesn't know that the first person made it up or made a mistake, and now everybody thinks it's real. And a lot of times these things get inflated and messed up.
Yeah. So I think, speaking of things that get inflated and get messed up on determining, you know, if they're real or not, let's talk about mermaids.
Mermaids. What about mermen?
Yeah, they don't exist.
I mean, and what kind of mermaids are we talking about? Are we talking about head of a fish, torso of a person, or torso of a person, body of a fish?
Let's go with torso of the person, body with the fish.
Fair enough.
You know, I want to keep it classic.
The traditional.
The traditional. Ugh. So I'm sure everybody that is listening to this has at some point seen The Little Mermaid.
One of the best.
It's one of the most classic.
Definitely one of the most classic, for
the
sure.
Walt Disney version is so far away from the Hans Christian Andersen
Yes.
version that you could ever imagine. Spoilers: Ariel dies.
And turns into sea foam.
Yeah. But yeah, the totally different stories. But accounts of mermaids have been around for a long time. We're talking even to the Greeks.
Yep.
We've had accounts of mermaids. So, are mermaids real? Is there an undersea kingdom of mermaids and mermen that are like secret and hate the fish eaters, as they call us?
I'm going to go with yes.
You're going to go yes?
Yes.
Well, unfortunately, mermaids are not real.
The Sufficiently Advanced Podcast, also known as Mr. Hanson and Mr. Halsey Ruin Everything.
You're welcome. But they're not. They're not real.
Okay.
And it's the weirdest thing that is the explanation for them.
Yep.
Now, maybe
It's
I'm
kinda
wrong.
weird.
Maybe mermaids are real, but there's a very strange explanation. So imagine you're on a boat.
Done.
And you've been sailing, no power,
Okay.
for, I don't know,
Months.
a month, 2 months,
4.
4. You have scurvy at this point. You're dehydrated.
Delirious.
All of a sudden, in the distance, you see somebody on a rock,
Just laying there.
just laying there. Now, to us, it may seem like a big blob.
Okay.
To them, it might seem like someone reaching out to them. But in reality, it's a manatee.
A manatee?
A manatee.
Surely you mean sea cow.
Yes, the sea cow, the honorable sea cow, king of the sea. Now, actually, most mermaid sightings have been attributed to in areas where there are manatees.
Interesting. So this gets to like one of those human kind of, the ways our brains are designed is we see human things in things that are not.
Yeah.
So you see faces everywhere. You can see a face in a bush or in a cloud.
Man in the moon.
Man in the Moon, perfect example. So this is an example of that where, not only are you a sailor who's like delirious and unhealthy and dehydrated, but
Very unhealthy.
You're praying just that you'll one day even just see land. And so you see this figure in the distance that's just shaped enough like a human that you're like, oh my gosh, that could be a human. And it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's swimming. It's swimming. It doesn't have feet. It's a mermaid. It's a mermaid. Everybody on this side of the boat now, there's a mermaid. There's a mermaid.
So, in reality, manatees.
Manatee.
Manatee.
Man o' war.
So there's a good example of how
That needs to be a new comic book. Man of War Manatee.
I'd be amazed if it didn't exist already.
I haven't seen it, but if it does. If you find evidence of Man of War Manatee as a comic book, leave it in the comments below.
Please.
Please, because I gotta read that.
Okay, so we've got a weird one that's like rooted in reality. It's just a mistake of kind of the way human brains work and see things. This is one of the most famous cryptozoology animals ever.
Cryptids. We call them cryptids.
Cryptids, there you
Get
go.
it right or pay the price.
Bigfoot. This is super controversial.
Now, yeah. And you may have heard this called by a numerous amount of names.
Okay.
We're talking Bigfoot, skunk ape, the Yeti, Sasquatch, as it is in the Northwest.
Yep.
The abominable snowman. Lots of different names for Bigfoot. Now, personally, I believe Bigfoot exists.
Okay.
I really do. Now, if there's different takes on Bigfoot.
Yeah.
So there's it's an animal take, and then there's it's a mystical force take.
Isn't there something in between where it's like it's like an intelligent animal?
Yeah.
Like kind of almost on level with us?
Yeah.
Okay.
And so Bigfoot sightings have been made for a long time in North America. We're talking back to when Europeans weren't here. There were Bigfoot sightings in native tribes.
Crazy, okay.
And they consider them kind of like the men of the trees, like a separate like culture. And so that's kind of like where the spirituality part of it comes in, and that they're intelligent.
And it's also just not just in America either, right? I mean,
No.
it's fairly simple idea as well. I mean, it's an ape which looks a lot like humans.
Yeah,
Sounds like we might have a mermaid situation here.
Yeah, and which is actually something that has been brought up in recent talks about Bigfoot because there were very large apes that once lived in North America.
Okay, how long ago?
We're talking near the Ice Age and stuff like that.
Gotcha.
So very large gorilla-style apes, almost more like what are they? I want to say orangutans.
Those are the orange ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They're almost like orangutans, and they did live in North America. They were gigantic apes that lived here. And so they think that Bigfoot may be a descendant of one of those species.
Okay. So there's a little logic in there.
There is, and there's been lots of crazy Bigfoot sightings,
Sure.
and people attacked by Bigfoot. One of my favorite stories about Bigfoot is from back home, Falk, Arkansas.
I feel like Arkansas is all you need to know.
Now, hold on. We don't have to talk about my home like that, man. Come on now.
How dare you? Everything is open on this podcast.
You're right. But seriously,
Science sheds a light on all.
fine, it's a crappy place, but whatever. So anyway, back home in Arkansas. If you didn't know, I'm from Arkansas, and that explains a whole lot. I'm one of the few that made it out. Funny fact, this isn't my real voice. So
There you go.
I had to learn to talk again. But, because Arkansas, man. Anyway, so when it comes to Bigfoot, Falk, Arkansas had an incident back in the early 70s.
Okay.
And it was we called it the Boggy Creek Monster.
Okay.
Because there's the creek's named Boggy Creek.
Gotcha.
And so
not a Swamp Thing situation. But...
not necessarily. I mean, there's a swamp around there. It's very southern Arkansas, just outside Texarkana,
Gotcha.
Louisiana area. And so this monster actually attacked a family in their home. Like, didn't get in the home, but was like breaking windows, trying to pull people out, killed the dog, like broke its back and everything like that. I mean, really, and it was very, very highly documented. They even made a movie about it. And they used the real location. For the movie. And they have lots of evidence. I mean, we have lots of footprints and things like that for Bigfoot. And so it's been one of those kind of well-established ones. It makes you really wonder. I mean, there's been, of course, lots of hoaxes as well. Was it about 10 years ago they had the one in the freezer?
Yeah.
You remember that?
I remember that.
The rednecks shot it and then put it in a freezer and said they're going to parade it around the country. I mean, because, what else do you do with Bigfoot? You shoot it,
Obviously.
And so there's been lots of hoaxes, lots of video hoaxes, and lots of really bad TV shows on it.
Also true.
But I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility. I mean, if you think about it, we find lots of new species. Yeah, this is a bigger species, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Sure.
I think Bigfoot is a real zoological creature. I think he's out of the cryptid area and a true zoological creature. I think it's a small population. I don't think it's in the South. I think if we're having a chance, it's going to be in that northeast or northwest Pacific rainforest.
Gotcha. Okay. I could see that. I'm not entirely convinced, but again, I think it's more likely that it doesn't exist, but I think it's a close line. I think the interesting thing about things like this is with a myth that's around something this humanoid, if it does exist, I think some people still would have invented it anyway without knowing that it really exists. Does that concept make sense?
Yeah.
So you can come to the same conclusion independently of being a crazy person who thinks they see things in the woods and being a sane person who's actually seen this type of creature. So that's where it gets harder to determine whether it's real or not, because it's something that's really easy to make up and mistake.
Yeah, like you could easily mistake like a grizzly bear on its hind legs or something like that. But the tracks left behind is what people have really focused on.
That makes sense.
So I think we should do another one that's more silly.
Okay.
Well, not silly to some, but my daughter's favorite four-legged creature, the unicorn.
Yes, I love unicorns.
Why don't you kick us off?
Well, I mean,
Unicornus.
So you have, a lot of the medieval stories that include unicorns. I mean, if you want to like go really broad, you could even include like the Greek Pegasus, things like that. So it's all closely tied together.
The North Koreans found a unicorn.
Oh yeah, of course they did.
Yeah.
So
ride.
you even have weird versions of this, like often like in Chinese culture has some similar things. They're not quite, I think they're called, in Japanese culture it's called like a kirin. So it's very similar. It has like a horn type of thing. So I think this is one of those interesting ones where, again, it's not super far-fetched in the sense that, I mean, why couldn't you have a horse-like animal with a horn in it?
There's lots of stuff with horns. What's the appeal of unicorns? Like, it's just a horse of a horn.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I mean,
I think it probably revolves around, like, the myths that surround it, that give it some sort of, like, magical qualities beyond just having a horn.
I will heal you with my horn.
Exactly. And also you have the ideas around, like, especially in the medieval myths, how you had to be pure of heart to encounter a unicorn. So it had this, like, special reflection of relationship with morality and righteousness and uprightness in order to even qualify to be with these
So I'd never see one.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
For sure.
And you know what's weird about just unicorns, like in general, outside of like My Little Pony or something like that?
Yeah.
There are no good kid unicorn movies.
Really?
Yeah. Like there's
I mean,
none.
how are we defining kid here? Because, I mean, I guess Legend's pretty creepy.
Legend's pretty creepy.
It's the best unicorn movie ever.
I don't know. Have you ever
far.
seen The Last Unicorn?
Yes, I have. It's also really high on my list, but
Yeah.
nothing can beat Tim Curry
Yeah.
as the demon-y devil.
But I mean, that's
kinda
only
dude.
like two.
Yeah, it's a fair point.
There are no good unicorn movies. If you haven't seen The Last Unicorn, it's the most phoned in like performance by Jeff Bridges ever. Is Prince Lear. He's just like, hi.
It's so ridiculous, it's good.
But now I'm blanking on his name. Christopher Lee.
Oh, okay.
Christopher Lee plays the main villain, and he got so into the role. Like, Christopher Lee is such a good method actor. He like read
amazing.
the entire book, and they're like doing this like B-roll movie, and he's like, no, this is not how my character would act.
Wait a minute, isn't there a unicorn in Wrinkle in Time? I'm pretty sure there was in the book.
new
I
one?
don't know if they did it in the movie.
I have not
haven't
seen the new movie,
so
but I mean, is it
it's
a
possible.
main character?
No.
Okay.
No. So there you go.
So but yeah, The Last Unicorn is ridiculously fun
Yes.
to watch.
Highly recommend it.
Smindrick. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see the appeals. Like I'm sure there's some magical qualities, and they're like, ride with me.
Yeah,
You know,
that's fair.
but,
Either way, it's one of those that it's not, the initial idea isn't super far-fetched. I mean, there's tons of animals that have horns, so
Yeah.
it makes sense. So maybe not, probably not,
probably not.
but I don't think we have a lot invested in its existence anyway.
Yeah.
So
No.
let's do a creepy one.
Okay. Which one do you want to do?
I vote Mothman.
Mothman.
So yet again, another slightly humanoid thing.
Oh, this
but
thing's creepy.
It will haunt your dreams. So tell us about it.
So the Mothman is
Richard Gere, right?
No. Yeah, dude.
Look that up. Do yourself a favor. Woo.
It was
Bad movie.
It was Pleasant Point, West Virginia, I believe.
Yeah, I think so. Sounds
Anyway,
right.
so the Mothman is a very large humanoid, bird-like thing with giant red eyes and huge wings.
Yep.
That stalked that area during the late, I believe it was 1980s.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And so this creature has been seen around the world, and it's considered to be a prophecy of doom. So,
Or a harbinger kind
like
of thing?
like a harbinger. Some people think that it brings the doom. Some people think that it's warning us about disastrous things. There's been
Yeah.
lots of Mothman sightings right before big disasters, apparently.
Right. Or even like some people talk about it almost saving them from specific things. type
Yeah.
of stuff. So it's super creepy, but also unclear whether it's supposed to be benevolent or malevolent.
Yeah, kind of like the Jersey Devil kind of stuff.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, it's actually a lot like the Jersey Devil. But anyway, so the Mothman started showing up in what they call the TNT area in around Point Pleasant. And the TNT area was an old munitions factory by the United States government during World War II and stuff like that. And they had lots of chemicals and stuff. So it may have been a mutated, some people think it might have been a mutated crane or something like that.
Huh.
But
Because
anyway,
the wing idea, that makes
yeah.
sense.
And so it would chase after cars and stuff like that. And this thing was crazy. It'd land on people's roofs and it terrorized this town. People that you would not think would be any believers in monsters or anything like that
Right.
were just like, this thing's real. This thing is real.
Huh.
And it all came to an end suddenly. No body or anything like that of the
Right.
creature. But it came to an end. They saw the Mothman. There was a Mothman sighting by a bridge.
Yes. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, so there was a Mothman sighting by this major bridge that crossed this big river. And a couple days later, the bridge collapsed,
Holy cow.
taking
Okay.
hundreds of people down and killing several.
Yeesh.
And so, but after that, it stopped. Now, there's lots more about that area that gets really creepy.
Nice.
Have you ever heard of Ingrid Cold?
I don't think so.
So this is probably one of the creepiest things. Around the same time, there's a mysterious figure called Ingrid Cold that would appear to people. And he looked like a man, but he wore big glasses, very dark glasses, and had kind of this unnatural movement to his body.
Okay.
And he would always be smiling.
Creepy.
But when he talked, he didn't stop smiling, and his mouth didn't move.
Oh,
He was using
Nope.
telepathy. And there's also lots of sightings of men in black
Okay.
around the same time.
So this is like a hot spot for crazy, weird stuff happening.
And so there's lots going on there. There's a really good documentary on Netflix about Mothman that I highly suggest watching. I can't remember the name of it right now, but it is just nuts. All the things that happened to this town in
crazy.
such a
Maybe it was
short
just
period
something
of
in the water.
time. Who knows? But this thing got crazy.
Yeah, I think one of the crazier parts about this story is the idea that, there was a whole bunch of sightings in this particular period of time, and then they just stopped. It's not very common for cryptozoology kind of things, It's always just kind of this ongoing thing where this person sees one and this person sees one, and for it to just people to abruptly stop seeing it, for me that seems like at least some evidence
that it
that
stopped.
it actually happened.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, why would you just?
Because there haven't been big sightings since.
Yeah. So I think that's an interestingly unique aspect of the Mothman.
Yeah, because if you consider Jersey Devil or Bigfoot or anything like that, there's always continuous sightings and continuous sightings. This just stopped, in that area.
I feel like that makes it creepier for some reason too.
In other areas, it would do the same thing. You'd see it and then it'd stop.
Yeah. So the areas that had been seen before, they never see it anymore. and then a new area sees it for a particular amount of time, and it's fairly concentrated, right? There's
Yeah,
like a lot
yeah.
of people seeing it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden,
It's gone.
nobody sees it ever again in that area.
Yeah.
So, kind of a cool idea.
Yeah. So let's talk about another one that has some actual physical evidence.
Okay.
And that is one of Texas's own cryptids, the chupacabra.
Yes, the chupacabra.
Now, there are two different versions of the chupacabra.
Okay.
And the first sighting or first account of when we think of chupacabra, we usually think like ancient kind of stuff. I think a lot of that has to do with like Red Dead Redemption 1, where you had to find the chupacabra.
Gotcha.
People thought it was something from the Old West. But actually, the first sighting and the naming of the chupacabra was actually in the 1990s in Puerto Rico.
Huh, okay.
That was the first time. Now, this thing had the legs of a kangaroo, and the upper body was just like almost like a gremlin kind of looking thing.
Okay.
But it had one distinct feature. It didn't drag away victims. And the victims were, small animals, chickens, goats, stuff like that.
Yeah.
What it did is it drained them of blood.
There it is.
Yeah,
There's the creepy part.
The goat sucker. That's what chupacabra means.
Yeah, exactly.
And so the first evidence was in 1990s in Peru, not Peru, but Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And they actually got hair samples.
Really?
Yeah, they actually got hair samples.
What did they show?
That it was probably some kind of canine.
Okay, yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Canine legs have that, like, type of bend in it where I
Yeah.
suppose you could easily mistake it for
Yeah.
like kangaroo legs.
But this thing supposedly had big red eyes, too. So,
Okay.
But that could be attributed to, moonshine on eyes
Yeah,
for
yeah.
animals. A lot of
Sure.
them have that.
Sure.
And dogs included.
Yep. We've
But the
all
most-
seen those creepy eyes in the dark.
Yeah. One of the most pronounced things, though, were the teeth.
Okay.
Had very, very long canines on both the top and the bottom.
Okay.
Now, fast forward to
And they know this from the puncture wounds?
from the puncture wounds.
Okay,
From
okay.
the very distinct puncture wounds.
Gotcha.
Now, fast forward a few years later, in the 2000s, and there starts to be even around Plano and southern Texas, we start to see chupacabra sightings. Now, this time, they're more like dogs.
Okay.
They're more like dogs, but they still have the longer back legs in the front, almost kangaroo-like.
Yeah.
And one of the big differences for the Puerto Rico one, it walked on 2 legs. These walked on 4.
Gotcha.
But they were completely hairless.
Okay.
Completely hairless, and they had these really long fangs. And same situation. They weren't taking away, because most predators, when they
Yeah.
attack a chicken or something like that, they take it away
Yeah.
and eat it. You find evidence. They were just draining the blood.
Man, that is so weird.
And they actually shot a couple and killed them
Okay.
and sent them off for lab testing. They believe there's some kind of canine.
All right.
But they're not 100% sure. They're not sure if it's a canine that has a very bad skin disease, but they can't account for the elongated canine teeth, or if they're a new species of canine that we haven't encountered before.
It seems like abnormal teeth and abnormal skin. I mean, seems like a recipe for mutation as well.
Yeah.
Right? So definitely, I mean, depending on how broad or specifically you want your definition to be, I mean, you could say it technically absolutely exists.
Yeah.
Or you could say, well, maybe there's these things that kind of fit our idea of a chupacabra, but the things that originally were seen were just kind of made up random stuff.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's kind of a running theme in cryptozoology in general.
Yeah.
It's the idea that, humans are easily able to inflate real concepts and turn it into something that's so far beyond what it originally was. And then that's more interesting, so it's more pervasive in the cultural ideas, and it's much more fun to think that a unicorn with magical powers exists than some guy saw a horse that had a branch behind it that looked like a horn, and all of a sudden you have unicorns.
Yeah. So let's get to one that's very much in theme with the current month,
Okay.
and that is werewolves.
Werewolves. All right.
And on the day we're recording this, I believe it was a full moon last night. Or
Was it?
It was either tonight or tomorrow.
I know it was big.
Or tonight yesterday. But so werewolves are creatures that are men or women, people that change into a wolf
Okay.
like creature.
Yep. We're all pretty familiar with werewolves, hopefully. So where's the idea come from? Do you know?
Huh?
The idea.
The idea of a werewolf, it comes from ancient Gaelic, from Europe.
Yeah,
is where we
that makes
see.
sense.
Now these are
More
also
like
attributed
pagan kind of
pagan stuff, but we
right?
also see some Native American references to
Yes,
it.
yes.
A lot of times,
You're talking about Twilight, right?
yes. Also, like skinwalkers are sometimes considered to be werewolf-style creatures.
Right. So there's a lot of Native American mythology of, bonding with animals, having a spirit animal.
Yeah.
And that concept goes well into the ideas of like becoming the animal and coming back human, and there's a lot of spiritual component to the Native American type of werewolf, whereas the European, it's kind of weird.
Yeah.
There's some spiritual component because you have this like the pagan,
Mostly
animal
curses.
worship type stuff, and then you get into where you have the devil worship kind of stuff,
Yeah.
where you're cursing people or you've made some kind of deal where maybe it goes wrong or something, that type of thing. So
Yeah.
very different ideas.
Yeah, so werewolves, I believe I've actually might have seen one time.
Really?
Yeah.
Elaborate.
Okay, so this is like, if you know me personally, when it comes,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, when it comes to like a lot of things, I'm very analytical. Like
Sure.
I think about it. I don't jump to conclusions very often.
Except on your jump to conclusions, Matt.
Yeah, well, and you have to have a jump to conclusions, Matt. Patent pending. But so this one time back in college, we were driving up Highway 7 in Arkansas.
Okay.
And we were going from Hot Springs back to Russellville to Tech, where I went to college. It was on a weekend, and we ended up leaving really late.
Okay.
And I'm driving. My wife is in the passenger seat. We're driving back, and she wasn't my wife then, but you know what I'm saying. But so we're driving back to college for the week. And it's about, and to give you an idea, like if you could imagine just a road going through mountains and woods with like people not around for possibly miles.
Yep.
That's the kind of road this was.
Okay, middle of nowhere road.
Middle of
No
nowhere.
reason to ever suspect a human anywhere near the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I get like my hair stands up thinking about this story. Like me and my wife didn't talk about it for years.
Yeah.
And I said, "Do you remember that?" Because we were watching a documentary.
Yeah.
So she said, "Yeah, I don't want to talk about it." Like that's how like so anyway. So we're driving, and all of a sudden, down the runs in front of the car, and it wasn't a bear.
Okay.
It was far too lean to be a bear.
Okay.
Had very big arms. It was kind of hunched over, like with four legs, but you could tell that it like could stand
upright.
It could be upright, and it had the face of a dog, like almost like. I don't want to say a Dane.
Yeah.
But
I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah. It
Kinda
definitely
like
had the muzzle, but it was furry. It was really furry. Not like bear fur where it's short fur or anything like that. Because we had bears back in Arkansas. We had black bears.
Yeah.
But they aren't that big.
Okay.
I mean, I'm driving a Chevy Cavalier.
Okay.
At the time, and that thing was almost halfway, a little about halfway or more as tall as my car.
Huh.
And this thing
intense.
goes across the road. I slam on my brakes, and it turns.
Really?
Like, it turns, and it lifts its hands off the ground, and then turns back, like
Yikes.
turns towards us, and then goes back. That thing was no bear. That thing was no bear, and I'm not kidding. I'm not making anything up for the podcast or anything like that. You can look, like you can see my hair.
Yep, it's a fact. Goosebumps exist right now.
And I looked at my wife, and she looked at me, and we both said, "What was that?" And we grew up in the woods, like seeing these kinds of things. So I can honestly believe some of these sightings of Chupacabra and Bigfoot because there are people that grow up, living in these wooded areas.
Sure.
And all of a sudden, something weird happens. They know those areas.
Yeah.
Because they have to be safe.
Sure. Yeah, you got to know the area really well.
Yeah.
Know what you can encounter.
And, this thing was nothing I've ever seen before. Absolutely terrified. Terrified me.
I
hauled.
I think that would terrify anybody.
I hauled back the campus, and we got back there. And we didn't talk about it for a long time. And finally, it was actually last year we started talking about it again. This happened years ago. I was like, do you remember? She was like, it was gray. That's that's what my wife said. Just said, it was gray. I remember. It was gray.
Interesting. That's creepy.
So it wasn't just me, being tired or something like that.
Yeah.
It wasn't just me.
Right on. Well, are we ending it there pretty much?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to end it.
Quick honorable mention to Nessie.
Yeah,
Loch Ness Monster. Just been debunked lots of times for lots of reasons. But
even the famous photo was debunked.
Still a fan favorite, and I think that's reasonable. Always in the kind of the annals of history for cryptozoology as well.
Yeah. Well, what do you want to talk about next time?
Well, in kind of the vein of the weird, almost mystery-ish kind of stuff, I think we should go even deeper into that rabbit hole, into moon landing conspiracy stuff. And as far as conspiracies go, I think this is probably one of the most famous.
Oh, yeah.
And it's, again, a wonderful example of how your kind of human brain has the tendency to see things in a kind of fantastical way. Whereas if you look at it closely and kind of understand more about science, even something that seems unlikely can become very likely with the evidence. And conspiracy theories, I love conspiracy theories because it's such a hilarious example of how crazy you can get with something and ways that you can manipulate the information to make it seem plausible. Because we are really good at that in so many ways.
And I have an idea for the one following that.
Nice.
So,
all right.
I think the one following that, I think we should talk about the lost nukes around the world.
Yes. Oh, that stuff is cool, too.
So now you know what we're going to do for the next two podcasts, but we're going to let you enjoy the rest of your day without us.
Don't forget to smash that like button.
Remember to share and subscribe and hit the bell notification because
Ding-a-ling.
YouTube doesn't know how to work anymore. Catch you later. This is Holsey.
This is Hanson.
Bye.